All right, well, it's time for some Democracy 3. How's it going, HK, Michael, Elron? American Krogan, how you doing?
Doing all right. It's a little hot. I think I might go open the window real quick. I'll be right back, actually.
Okay. Well, we're playing Democracy 3, and I think I got my sound pretty good. Start a new game. So, in this game, it's all about democracy. How does democracy really work? We can start off with a country, United Kingdom. You know, it lists some stuff around here. It's got population, area in square kilometers, life expectancy, Gini index, inequality index, GDP per capita, poverty, ethnicity, religion, tea consumption, obesity rate, and Big Mac index. And you'll see some of these change. So there's no tea consumption listed for France, but they do have a happiness level and a croissant consumption and cannabis use. Internet users, population growth. Germany, you can see beer consumption, sausage consumption, right? These are all listed at, 90% white or whatever for Germany and United Kingdom. United States listed at 80% white. Here it's actually Christian is listed, right? Beef consumption. Canada.
What year is this supposed to reflect?
What?
What year is this supposed to reflect?
I think this game came out in 2013, didn't it? Something like that?
Yeah, but like 80% white?
Yeah.
Then?
Well, then you got Canada. It's got moose consumption, maple syrup consumption. They all have the Big Mac index. Australia, Vegemite consumption. All right. Well, I think we'll do the United States. You know, I live there. Because you can see there, it says July 2013 for population. July 2012 for the UK. 2019 for Canada. So, here we go. Let's play as the United States. We have some things we can mess around with. We can mess around with term limits, term length, hurricanes, earthquakes, difficulty, political apathy. There's two sliders here. One is innate socialism. One is innate liberalism. Right? And it would be really nice if they, I don't know, defined these terms exactly. I mean, for some people, they are very confident in their definition, and they assume everyone else has the same definition until you actually start to force people to make those definitions. And then all of a sudden there's the differences that they thought didn't exist. So, you can also change the party's names. It doesn't actually matter. It gave me, as default here, it said the Liberal Party for my party and the Jehovah Party for the opposition party. Which I think may have just been a random choice out of this list. Yeah. But obviously the Jehovah Party makes it sound like, at least in the context of the United States...
I mean, it sounds like secular versus religion, you know?
Yeah.
Like...
And you can see when they list out the parties, they have National Unity Party, National Front, People's Popular Front. Then there's also like the Labor Party, the People's Movement, the Socialist Coalition, Secular Party. There's a direct secular party, Green Party. And there's Democrats and Republicans too. But those are just names. I don't think the names matter.
Yeah, okay.
So we'll press play. And what's kind of cool is when you look down at here, for loading stuff, it says, lobbying ministers, complicating the tax code, misinterpreting the Constitution, calibrating corruption. It's a very much sort of SimCity reticulating splines sort of thing. Okay, Welcome to your new job as president. The lives of 316 million citizens are now in your hands. As you will imagine, there is a number of situations and concerns you need to deal with as soon as possible, while keeping an eye on the long-term improvements of our citizens' quality of life. Plus, do not forget that you face re-election in 4 years, so you will need to monitor the opinion polls of our party membership. Good luck. So you have 6 little things here. GDP, health looks bad, education looks pretty good, unemployment is good. I forget. The crime, that looks bad. Because I'm pretty sure, like, as it goes to the right, it just fills up. Meaning, if it goes to the right, unemployment, you have lots of it. And if it goes to the right on health, you have lots of health.
Yeah, but they still seem to have color-coded it. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, it's just weird. Like, education's green, crime's red.
What color's unemployment?
Yellow or orange, depending on your opinion. I'd say yellow, but it's a little tint of orange.
Okay, so here's the interface. Here's how we played the game. If you've never seen this, in the center, you have groups of people. For instance, the religious, and the middle income, and the environmentalists, and the liberal, and the retired, the conservatives. And that bar, I believe, is their opinion of me. Why do the Patriots support me? There are these issues. For example, the death penalty. I have the death penalty for mass murderers only. I could change it and make it for homicide, rape, violent crime in general, serious crime, and I could make it for most crime, just like most people get the death penalty.
But look at that, though, and they make it seem like conservatives would like that.
Yeah, conservatives would love if, like, I doubt it. But also, it decreases your compassion and whatever that means. It decreases vigilante mobs, right? We can, like, understand that on a fairly, like, part of the reason vigilante mobs exist is because on some level they don't believe that certain criminals who perform heinous actions will actually be punished. Mm-hmm. If you're really, like, laying down death penalty for any serious crime, then they have less reason to exist. Oh wait, no. Yeah. Liberals don't like it. Violent crime goes down. Patriots and conservatives go up, right? So we're gonna revert that. What else do the Patriots like? Well, they like border controls. So I can have anything from random passport checks, for not even everyone has their passport checked as they go through, up to armed guards and retina scans. Patriots like it. Liberals don't like it. Immigration totally goes down. And I'm not sure if that's true. I'm not sure if, like, when you immigrate, you only cross the border once. And just making it into a pain, like, if you're gonna, let's say you're in your 20s and you're gonna immigrate to the United States and you're gonna live the next 60 years, if it takes 1 hour or all day to get through immigration, does that really, like, stop you from immigrating? Do you not go because, oh, well, I'd like to live in the United States for the next 60 years, but it takes all day to get through the border, so... minorities don't like it. Non-whites don't like it if you have border control. And tourists don't like it. Now, I could understand the tourists, right? If it takes all day to get through immigration, and you only want to go for the weekend, I mean, I could understand that, how that would harm them. But what's interesting is what they portray in the game is that, well, an ethnic minority doesn't want your country to have strong borders. let's take a look around here too. Let's look at, so you have these different sections, right? You can see when I mouse over this white part, it says welfare, foreign policy, transport, law and order, public service, tax, and this is economy. Let's take a look around here. Where is our unemployment? Here we go. We can see all sorts of things that affect unemployment. For example, crime. How they represent it is that, so the effect of unemployment, crime goes up barely, plus 1.95%. As unemployment goes up, productivity goes down. As unemployment goes up, wages go down. I'm not sure there is quite the causal relationship like that.
Well, sometimes unemployment goes up because productivity is up.
Mm-hmm. Well, and here's immigration, right? So they're saying that when unemployment goes up, immigration goes down, which that does make sense. I have talked about in a couple of my videos, especially assimilation is a joke. I've talked about how hard economic times in the United States past, like the Great Depression, has like plummeted immigration, because most immigrants are fundamentally economic immigrants. They're not like ideological, want to conform to your society immigrants. That's like not nearly as much of a thing as people think it is.
Right.
They also suggest that as unemployment goes up, alcohol consumption, antisocial behavior, drug addiction, and homelessness go up. And you could kind of see what they're suggesting here, and it, you know, as terms of like, are these the actual effects, and these the actual effect sizes? They're also just suggesting obesity goes up.
But just to, if you don't mind, going back to the idea of unemployment and the relationship between productivity and unemployment, like they say that if productivity goes down, then unemployment should go up. Is that what they said? They're
saying if unemployment goes up, productivity goes down. So
right, and
unemployment's the
like
cause, and
yeah, I just feel like that's not necessarily true. Like, I mean, there are all sorts of companies that can like, and this isn't necessarily a good thing. It's like GDP can go up and unemployment can go up. Like, that's totally possible. Like, you know, like you can have a company become more productive and fire half of its employees.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that's, so it's just kind of strange that they would. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, I think you'll see this a lot where some of the things are questionable. So let's ask, why is ethnic minority a category at all? Well, it's a good question. Why, if ethnic minority is a category, why isn't ethnic majority a category? You know, if this is everyone but us, well, then where's us?
Right. I mean, like, you and I really do need to make a compilation of all these people referring to white Americans as Americans.
Mm-hmm. And what's interesting here is wages. They do represent how immigration lowers wages.
That is interesting.
Yeah. And that's something that's I've talked about. I had a video, something like the economy as a joke. I've talked about how population declines, like historic pandemics that have killed off people, generally lead to real wage increases post-pandemic, right? And a real wage is it's a wage measured by what you can buy for it, rather than like nominal. Like, if your wage goes from $1 to $2, but everything has gotten 3 times more expensive, we'd say your real wage has gone down. So pandemics historically, because it's a population decline, makes everyone everyone can get a bit higher pay. When you get immigration, that's a negative effect. It does the opposite. You're increasing the population and people get less pay.
I mean, this, and just like you've said this a couple of times, I think privately, but you know, it doesn't matter if it's white immigration; it still will depress wages, and this is largely why we had all these labor movements in the late 19th century, early 20th century in America. Not because we had this huge influx of non-white immigration, but because we had this huge influx of European immigration. And it didn't matter that it was all white people, it still depressed the wages. So.
And you can sort of click around on things directly. So, okay, border controls affects tourism. So let's click on tourism. And then we can see like, oh, okay, so what are the other effects that hurt tourism, like crime? We can click on crime, go look at crime directly. And so you have these things like crime, which you can't directly control, but there are causes downstream that you can maybe affect. For example, the police force. Now we actually have a slider where we can go from no police, which the conservatives don't like, the state employees don't like. The violent crime goes up, the crime goes up, and antisocial behavior goes down.
What?
Yeah. Or, yeah, you have...
oh, right,
wait,
yeah,
no.
Yeah.
Is that? I don't know. It's kind of confusing with the positives and the negatives, but, you get... Okay. Here's antisocial behavior. So, you see how when we go... We have medium police, and we're right here. Oop.
Yeah, it looks like it's going down.
Yeah, we have less antisocial behavior. Dude,
Yeah, I get... I mean, yeah, it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell what they mean there because of the way it's color coded.
Well, and alcohol abuse goes up as you get fewer cops. Okay. Vigilante mobs go up, right? Antisocial behavior goes up. You get more of it. Drug addiction goes up.
Yeah, it is supposed to mean going up. I see what they're doing. The color coding was throwing me off.
But it's weird that they would suggest that... Okay, yeah. Okay, we're good. We're good. But close out of that. Okay, so upper left corner, you can see this fist, and it shows your level of political capital. So you spend capital whenever you adjust a policy or implement a new one. Your points are generated by loyal members of your cabinet. So I can come in here, go to police force, and it says I can raise or lower the police force. Raise it takes 4. Lowering it takes 18 political capital. And I only have 25 right now on this turn. This is a turn-based game. So, and you can see the costs down here in potential income. Obviously, the police is a cost center, not an income center. But, and I think this will actually change depending on what your country you're in. So, for example, if we go to military spending, we're already at the top for the United States. That's how they represent it, that you're spending the maximum. You can't spend more, basically. But raising it doesn't take as nearly as much political capital as lowering it, right? And you can kind of see with the social commentary there. You know, if you were in Germany, they might do the opposite to you, where it takes more political capital to get more military than it does to cut some military.
They don't break down immigration into subsets from anywhere, like in this game, right? Like, so it's not like if you get more Germans, you're gonna get more political views along this political paradigm. Yeah, I mean that would be really cool.
The only thing they'll break down is they'll simply create one group called ethnic minorities. They don't actually stipulate how different
I wonder.
ethnic minorities will vote differently. You
Yeah.
know, there's tension between ethnic minorities rather than just the ethnic minority and
there
the
is?
majority. Yeah. Right, there's not in the
Okay.
game though. Right?
Oh, okay.
In the
Okay, I
game,
thought that's what you were saying.
in the game
Yeah.
there's no targeting of Asians by blacks for crime. But because its tension is just between whites and non-whites in this game.
Yeah. Yeah, which is just not really giving anybody playing this game a very accurate representation of how things really work.
So here are my cabinet members. They give me this amount of social capital per round, right? You can see their loyalty, their experience, their effectiveness, their campaigning, and their sympathies. Sympathies being who they like out of this group. And so if you do things that help that group, they like you more, their loyalty will stay high. If you do things that hurt that group, they'll become less loyal and eventually want to quit on you. So he is sympathetic to the religious and the capitalist. He's sympathetic to parents and patriots. She's sympathetic to retired and motorist and liberal, trade unionists and patriots.
We just need to make we need to make our own game that does this, but does it like we need to have like all the different ethnicities here, and then like they're loyal to such and such group, and then we can have the white liberal loyal to everybody but themselves.
Yeah. And interesting, we got two ladies who are nearly identical. They're different,
Yeah.
at least in terms of their character design. Trade unionist, patronate, religious and conservative, retired, and trade unionist. So political capital per turn, 25. So let's look at starting to make a change here. The red stuff is the stuff we're having problems with, because they're at certain levels. How could we address alcohol abuse? Well, we've got poverty, unemployment, alcohol consumption, just in general, is high, which leads to high abuse. Let's take a look at alcohol consumption. What's causing this? Well, we have alcohol law, GDP, poverty, and employment. As the GDP goes up, alcohol consumption goes up. Interesting. Take a look at our alcohol law. This is something we can actually affect. So, as we get a stricter law, the consumption goes down, violent crime goes down, but liberals and youths don't like it. Liberals really like it when you have no limits.
I was just going to say that again, depending on how GDP increases are achieved, I could see alcohol consumption or drug consumption in general going up. You know, like if GDP increases at the expense of, you know, most people's income and well-being, you know, then yeah. So, but I doubt they're insinuating that. I'd be curious to see if we can infer what the rationale for that was.
Well, let's see here. Alcohol consumption, GDP. Well, I don't know if we can, but here's what causes GDP. We can affect corporate tax, capital gains tax, petrol tax, pollution controls, science funding, small business grants, technology grants, crime, productivity, immigration, international trade, global economy in general. And that's out of our hands. Tourism, skill shortage, uncompetitive economy.
What's out of your hands?
Global economy.
Okay.
Like if the global economy goes down,
yeah.
the GDP goes down. So, and that's like something that's happening on a global level that I can't do a lot about. Okay, let's take a look. Let's deal with my alcohol consumption problem by enacting stricter alcohol laws. And it's harder to raise the laws than it is to lower it in the United States. So I don't think what's listed here actually matters, but it goes from no limits, 16, 18, 21, low strength beer only, and strong restrictions. I think I'm going to put in some strong restrictions. Let's see. Bam. Look at that. Now, we're not going to see a big change in alcohol abuse or use yet. We've got to go through a couple turns before we see what the effect is of that. How about tobacco tax? As you increase the tobacco tax, everyone hates it.
Really?
Poverty goes up, equality goes down, and tobacco usage plummets.
That's, I mean, that's the only part that makes sense to me. Tobacco usage plummeting. I would not expect poverty to go up.
And everyone hates it. And I don't have enough political capital to raise it. What does the wealthy want? Gated communities, limit automated trading, inheritance. They don't like inheritance tax, state health services. They don't like corporate tax or property tax. What's this gated community? A drastic solution to serious street crime and vandalism. Gated communities are basically self-policed residential areas. They are popular with the wealthy, but often associated with class divide and inequality, as only the relatively wealthy can afford to live in them. As a result, some governments are reluctant to permit their construction. So here we are, we're at indifferent. We can encourage them or discourage them. Conservatives and the wealthy don't like it when you discourage them. But liberals do like it. And it's better for equality.
It's such nonsense. They
when you encourage it, crime goes down. Yeah,
I mean,
this conservative support for gated communities seems a little suspect. Let's take a look at crime, though. We want to address our crime problem. Police force. Let's see what we can do to affect the police force. We can raise the police force. If we raise it up, crime will go down, violent crime will go down, conservatives will like it, state employees will like it. We'll have more state employees in total, right? So more of this group. State employee income goes up. I don't know why. Unemployment goes up. There's more unemployment? Wait, no. Unemployment goes down. Yeah. Unemployment goes down. Antisocial behavior goes down. Alcohol abuse. Hey, this looks good. We're going to use 4 social capital of my remaining 12 to really beef up the police force. Deal with our crime problem. What else affects crime? Well, there's armed police. Now, in the United States, most of our police already are armed. The police force and armed police being 2 separate categories seems more like a UK kind of thing. So you can have only specialists have guns versus every officer carries submachine guns.
Which is, I mean, that's more of a... Well, really, that's not even necessarily like a Latin American thing. I mean, you'll see like a lot of private enterprises with like heavily armed guards, but you won't see like cops necessarily walking around. Although there are cops who do walk around in some places with some pretty heavy-duty gear. But I mean, that's what's always ironic about how people envision the United States. It's like the United States, there isn't anywhere in the United States where like your average police officer is walking around with anything other than a holstered 9mm or something like that,
So let's see. Let's take a look around here. What do the liberals want?
Everything.
Jeez. They want foreign aid, right?
They want to give out foreign aid?
Yeah. So,
Okay.
boom. So if you give more foreign aid, the socialists like it. The patriots don't like it. The liberals like it. Foreign relations gets better. The ethnic minorities like it. Again, what they're suggesting is that if you have strong borders, or you don't give away money that could benefit your nation to other nations, your ethnic minorities will not like it. So
Yeah, which
gotta,
suggests that they're not part of your country.
yeah,
You know?
it's like if you have money that could be used domestically, but you have a group of people who would prefer it that you would give it to others and not help yourself. That group is maybe kind of complicated in
yeah,
whether they're good
what
for
also
you.
stands out here to me is like this idea that a socialist can't be a patriot.
Mhm.
Now, I'm not a socialist, but I don't think that. Well, there are some socialist policies I totally support.
Yeah, it is
but-
interesting. So let's
Yeah,
take
they don't have to be separate.
let's
shouldn't
revert
be
the change. Let's look at socialist. Hey, how's it going, DJ? Socialists are firm believers in the redistribution of wealth. Those who are successful and highly paid should be heavily taxed as to provide better quality of life for the less fortunate. Socialists believe in a large role for the state in providing universally available services such as free healthcare for all, free education, and heavily subsidized housing and public transport. So, okay, fine. They're not representing any socialist who could be sort of nationalistic in any sort of way. Right? So they're not saying like there is no way that a socialist in this game would be concerned that due to increasing foreign aid and budget issues that the availability of free healthcare and all the programs he wants could be in jeopardy. Right? At no level does he view giving away the money as conflicting with redistributing the money within the country, which is weird because you would think some socialists would view it that way, but
well, they used to. Yeah, I mean, like,
Yeah.
I mean, quote unquote socialists. You know, back in the late 1800s,
Yeah.
a lot of them thought in terms like that.
yeah.
So I mean, it's just should tell you like how these terms have changed over time have been really, I don't know, I guess I'll use the word interesting.
Let's take a look at foreign relations. We got what else is going on with immigration? Citizenship test. As you have stricter citizenship
test, is that what you said? I'm sorry.
Yeah. As you have a stricter citizenship test. Patriots like it. Racial tension goes down. Less racial tension. Patriots like it. Immigration goes down. Liberals don't like it, and ethnic minorities don't like it if you have strict citizenship tests. And this makes sense to me that racial tension would go down. Let's cancel that. Let's take a look at racial tension.
This makes sense to me.
This does make sense. As immigration goes up, you have more racial tension.
Right.
Because you're allowing various races who might not get along. But also, when you have a strict citizenship test, you're much more selecting out people who are there just for selfish economic reasons, and you're selecting for people who like really want to be a part of your society.
Well, that makes sense. But how would the current ethnic minorities and how would the current population as it's distributed ethnically, how would they all react to a change in an increase in the rigor of a citizenship test? I feel like I totally agree with you that you would be selecting for a particular set or kind of person with a more rigorous citizenship test, but how would the current population react to the increase in rigor?
Well, the patriots like it, the ethnic minorities don't, and the liberals don't.
Right, but what I'm saying is, I feel like it should increase racial tension within the country. It shouldn't decrease it. I mean, if the ethnic minorities don't like it, why is racial tension going down?
What?
I thought you said it was going down.
What?
I thought you said it made racial tension.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. We can move on.
Gold says it seems like racial tension is going up. So this is just straight up. If it goes left, it's going down. If it goes right, it's going up. So let me go back here. So I don't know why there's colors. I'm colorblind, remember, so I don't look at the colors. But you don't need to in this game. Racial tension. So here's racial tension's level now. This is what it would be if we had
so
stronger.
it's going up. It's going up.
No.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Racial tension's going down.
When you increase citizenship tests.
Yeah. More citizenship tests, lower racial tension.
But you said it makes ethnic minorities unhappy.
Yes.
See that those two don't mesh to me. Like
I think what it's
ethnic...
more implying is immigration goes down. Because if you look at this, lower immigration, lower.
I see the rationale, but I guess what I'm saying is just like if you have a current composition such that you have like 20% of the population is this race, 20% is this race, 20% is this ethnicity, and so on and so forth. If you suddenly had a strong citizenship test, chances are it's going to select for a particular group over another in one way or another, whether it's indirectly or indirectly, whether it's intended or not. And that's going to upset certain groups because they're not going to see more of their group selected for in that process. So I would just suspect.
Let's read citizenship
We saw this
tests.
Historically. Well, hold on. Historically, we saw this when there was an implementation of a literacy test for immigration. A lot of minorities didn't like it. A lot of people have historically viewed that American implementation as racist.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people got upset about it. But ironically, all the workers, all the unions, most of the labor unions all supported it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
oh, yeah.
sorry.
So citizenship tests are a way of ensuring that people migrating to our country have demonstrable understanding of our culture and history. This lessens the chance for a clash of cultures for newcomers to the country, encouraging integration, and reassures patriotic members of society that they need not fear immigration, right? So that's what they're going with,
Yeah, and that makes sense. It's just that I would expect that racial tension to go down over time.
Right.
And
it
I
would go down
expect
over time, not immediately.
Right, and in the immediate events following that implementation, I would suspect to see a slight spike.
Right. Well, let's.
But they can't do that. They're limited because of the way they have this set up. So I guess I shouldn't really.
Okay. Well, we've used pretty much all of our political capital. There's just one left, and there's nothing we can really do with one. So let's click on next. And again, you can see the fun little things: misinforming the electorate, avoiding real debates, compiling misleading statistics. Okay, so here's our quarterly report. So that was one quarter that we just did. Well, we have budget problems, and our credit rating got downgraded, which is a bummer. Approval rate? It is going up, but it started out low. Detailed polls. You can see towards the top, patriot, retired, state employees, religious. Okay, let's... Whoops. Oh, man. Okay. GDP, health crime, blah, blah, blah. Cabinet report. That's just whether they think, whether they're loyal or whatever. Well, here we are. So, well, let's just keep going with trying to change things. What about these vigilante mobs? There's only really two effects, or two causes we can see. Well, actually, what's this? Okay. Well, there's four. You can see the arrows going towards it. Crime going towards it,
Yeah.
more vigilante mobs. Racial tension going towards it, more vigilante mobs. But the darker color, police force and death penalty going towards it reduces our vigilante mobs. But only out of these four, only like crime isn't a policy. Racial tension's not a policy. Police force and death penalty is a policy we can affect. But we can look at what's downstream of crime. Oh man.
Well, you can affect racial tension and what was the other?
Well,
you can affect
racial
the other
tension is
two
not a
indirectly.
policy.
Right.
There are policies that affect it. The only one directly is citizenship tests, and then you can
Is
get
that
into
really the only one?
yeah.
Wow.
White. Then you can get into these other ones, like so. Racial tension is affected by foreign relations. Foreign relations is affected by foreign aid, which we're going to get rid of. No more foreign aid. Bam. Took a lot of our political capital to do that, but that's fine. Now, I would like to decrease military spending a little. I mean, we could have a pretty strong army, save a lot of money. But I don't have the political capital to reduce the thing here. Goldschnaz says you can affect education, right? Yeah, it should be down here. Food price. Is there an oh, here's education. So education, they're representing it as playing into crime and violent crime. Now, in this game, there is no representation for the intelligence of your citizenry. There's no like representation of because there are genetic components to impulse control and intelligence and like MAOA gene and all these other things that lead to criminal behavior, and that's not represented at all in this game. Instead of those effects are probably thought of as educational effects in this game, right? So, like, if you invest enough in science funding, you know, we'll all be scientists because it's just a matter of education and not intelligence.
That to me, you know, obviously at one point in my life, I guess there were times in my life where I didn't think that fully out, but it's just like, God, I think a lot of us, if you stop and you think about it, it would be wonderful if that were true from a certain perspective, you know, because
yeah. Oh God,
like,
it'd make things a lot easier.
It really would. You know, but then at the same time, it's like, you know, people don't think about it, like it would kind of be terrifying in a way because everybody would literally be the same. It's just like, I mean, we'd be like this giant sort of insect colony, you know, more or less. Like, or that's not even a good analogy, but like, it's just so interesting that so often people who argue that we're all fundamentally the same and they believe that it just takes a certain amount of education to get anybody to be able to do anything or think anything. Those are often the same people who like just think diversity is the most wonderful thing ever. And yeah, I mean, these are the
diversity
same
is
people
ultimately superficial if we're all the same inside, you know.
Right. Well, it's just they're the same people who think that you have to have like authentic people from X country in order to enjoy X food being made, you know, like, so on some level they think that there's something intrinsically different about those people and there's something intrinsically of value to that diversity, yet at the same time they insist. It's just weird the levels that go in to some of these modes of thinking, the gymnastics they got to go through and how they one facet of their world paradigm contradicts the other. And I don't know, I just you know, when I step back from it and I don't get depressed about it, it is kind of interesting.
Let's take a look here. Here are some new policies we can create. So these are dots that aren't on the board, but we could add them. Whoops. Here. The ones in red are the ones that we can't afford right now. We don't have enough political capital. And there's popularity with voters. here assessed too. Welfare, okay. Alcohol awareness campaign, we could do that. Implementation time, it takes 2 quarters, does cost money though. And we already have crushing debt in the United States.
Free eye tests. Community policing.
Yeah. I'm surprised it costs so much.
Yeah, I mean, like, one of the arguments at least I've started to see being implemented for the defunding of the police is that as it currently stands, it seems there's a hidden argument or a hinted, an alluded to impetus for wanting to defund the police is that currently, like, some of it costs too much. Like, people just kind of want to spend less on it. So, like, because like, in California, at least, some of the community policing or whatever you want to call them efforts, they, at least when they're presented in the mainstream press, they're presented as, oh, look at how cost efficient these are. That, you know, it's only going to cost like 1/4 of what it costs right now. So this should be great, you know. And it's just like, all right. Like, I remember that. I don't know if you read about that program to have non-police respond to, like, community, not organizers, but some kind of like social worker respond to certain 911 calls classified a certain way. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about at all?
I mean, people have talked about that. I've heard about it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, one of the big things they talk about when they talk about it is, oh, it's going to cost so much less.
Yeah, I doubt it.
Here we saw that it cost more. Yeah, I think it would. I don't. Yeah. Well, if it might cost less, like immediately, but like there are going to be very significant increases in costs as a result of that kind of policy. Like, you know, more people are going to go to the emergency room probably, and there's going to be, you know, more. I mean, someone's going to pay for it somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Now, it's interesting. You look at some of these policies. For example, bus lanes, cycling campaign. Well, I mean, but especially bus lanes. I mean, this is the federal government of the United States, right?
Yeah.
This is like,
what are they doing this? This is like extreme overreach.
This is like a citywide policy, right?
Right.
This is like something the mayor and his city council should be dealing with. But like the president of the United States and Congress is like, we're gonna need bus lanes. What are they suggesting? Bus lanes everywhere? Like everywhere? I mean, rural dirt roads? What do you mean bus lanes? And
well, this.
We'll go ahead and do bicycle subsidies. What you'll see is right now, implementation time, blah blah blah. It is somewhat popular with people. It will cost some money, but we don't see how it'll affect net everything else, right? But if we implement, bam, now we can see our bicycle subsidy makes health go up, car usage go down, rail usage go down, bus usage go down.
Okay.
Rail usage is interesting because cars and bus are mostly for transporting people. In the United States, most rail is not people transport, right? There is Amtrak, but most rail is goods transport, not people. You would expect rail to not be so much affected by bicycling.
Even if they're including like the metro, the light rail, subways, all that in there. I mean, those are distances usually that you're not going to use a bicycle for.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even if they're including public transportation for light rails and such, yeah, it's just...
Yeah, generally, you know, you might take a cycle instead of a bus or a car some of the time.
Yeah, a few blocks, you know, a
but
mile or so,
probably not going to take, I don't know. Anytime I've gone by rail...
takes you from, this usually takes you from, like, a suburb to downtown or something.
Yeah, or you're going from... Yeah, I've taken the rail, like BART, Bay Area Rapid Transit. I've taken that from like San Francisco to Oakland. I mean, could you imagine biking that?
Sure, but not like, I mean, not as like a daily commute usage. You know what I mean? Like, it's so.
I don't know. Gets shanked on the way there.
Well, that's true too. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, let's apply the changes. We want the health. We need the health effects. Let's take a look at what we missed out on, though. Now that we've decreased rail, we'll reduce our oil demand slightly. Interesting, rail is in direct competition with car and bus, but more car than bus. What's
Okay.
car usage? Oh my goodness. Our CO2 emissions will go down because I've gotten the bicycle subsidy. Oil demand will go down. Traffic congestion will go down. Epidemic. Asthma and other lung diseases are a serious problem among our citizens. Not only does this obviously severely impact their quality of life, but it's also reducing our productivity and filling our hospital beds. Poor air quality, possibly caused by factory pollution and car fumes, together with smoking, are the likely causes. Parents are very not fans of the asthma epidemic.
I haven't kept up on smoking data in the U.S. Has smoking declined in recent years?
I would assume it's declined. I mean, I'm seeing it less and less. Let me open up a different window. Smoking statistics USA? I know you guys can't see this, but just out of curiosity, I thought I'd look it up. Yeah, it's going down.
Yeah, I mean, okay.
I'll put it on the screen in a second. Oh gosh.
Yeah, I mean, I think taxing the shit out of cigarettes is a good idea. I mean, I know it sucks if you're smoking and, you know, you don't make that much money and you gotta, but, you know, in the long run, you know, it'll, if it incentivizes you to quit, that's a good thing. You know, that's a really good thing. You will end up saving money and you'll feel better.
So 1944, we had about 40% of people smoking. Over the last decade, we've gone from, I don't know, it looks like 23-ish% to 16-ish%. So Goldschnaz says more vaping now. Yeah, I don't know if any of the vaping is considered smoking on these sort of statistics.
Right.
In general,
right.
I think it would be good to excuse me. I think it would be good to not be addicted to nicotine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the things I've done is for years now, many years, I've avoided caffeine. Caffeine is addictive. There are people who wake up every morning and can't get started without their hit of caffeine, you know? If they were to go on a trip, if they were to go to Machu Picchu, and they were out camping and something happened and they couldn't get their caffeine hit, they would have terrible withdrawal effects, terrible headaches. You know, it would be sucking for them. For me, I can get up and go anywhere, whether there's caffeine there or not. I'm not sort of like obligated to seek out caffeine where I'm at. Mm-hmm. And also, the effects, like, once you use a lot of caffeine, it's sort of like you're using it to be normal, right?
Yeah.
But if you're like me and you hardly ever use it, if there ever is a day where I really need to pull an all-nighter and get something done, it's critically important that I do it, well, caffeine is very powerful for me, right? I could easily use it to get through a night in a way that most people couldn't. And that's what you even see with some athletes, right? So caffeine has athletic improvement when you're on it. But it really helps that you don't use it all the time. Like, you wouldn't use it in training, you'd use it at your event.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, you don't want to be having it every day. You want to, like, save it for the times you need it. And that's what I do with caffeine. That's what I suggest others do with caffeine. Okay, I got 6 political capital. I don't know if there's much I can do. Tourism. Oh, here we go. welfare fraud department, which I like, and popularity with voters, which is estimated. Now, it will cost money, but it'll also bring some amount of income. Now, what they're suggesting here is that it'll cost more than it'll bring back. That's a political statement, right? But it's stated as a fact here. So let's implement this. So I can set it at whatever I want. You know, I just implemented it, so I don't have to, like, pay anything to raise or lower, because this is going in the first time. The poor don't like it. The conservatives like it. Middle incomes like it. And it's not compassionate.
Yeah, but that suggests right there, unless I'm looking at this the wrong way, that the poor are fraudulent.
Yes. Well, it could also, let's look at this. When the government gives so much money out in welfare programs, welfare payments, it's essential that the money is correctly targeted and not exploited by people making spurious claims. The dedicated fraud department will detect false claims, recover lost money, and reassure middle-income taxpayers that the taxes are being spent wisely, although it can antagonize legitimate claims.
All right.
I don't know what that means exactly. What I would think is...
You're only going to be able to verify that one way or another if they had a specific wording, like the specific wording of the, like, we need a case study here, and we don't have one. This is just like a broad, like, idea that, and as far as I'm concerned, they worded it in such a way that, like, I can see why.
Well, I mean, I think on some level it's going to be false positives, right?
Yeah.
Someone who has a legitimate claim is going to be marked in the system as an illegitimate claim, and they're going to They're going to have to jump through a lot of hoops to prove it.
Right, and if they're legitimate, they're like a legitimate person who probably already feels some kind of remorse for being on welfare. It's just like, God, they probably just feel even more like shit for, you know, like being accused of fraudulently collecting welfare. So,
well, I'm going all the way. But it is interesting that, so here they're suggesting it'll cost more than it'll income, which on some level is telling you, like, hey, this sort of program doesn't really help costs. Ever. Never. At no point in this slider is it ever financially a good decision. And that's a political statement, but we'll add it. Okay, I don't think I can do much with 2. Well, I guess I can do some things with 2. Many people have brilliant ideas, yet only a few of them dare take the steps necessary to set up their own little business around their idea. This campaign will help those people out, inform them of what they need to do, where they need to go, and what permits they need to get. This will help a great deal in making self-employed people happy. And it'll probably also increase the number of self-employed people, which is here, right? So a higher percentage of your population is self-employed means that if you have things that help them, you get more votes. If you have things that hurt them, but you're ending up with a lot more self-employed people, then it's harder to get elected. But that one seems fine.
Are you familiar with any stats in the U.S. for what's the percentage of the population that's considered self-employed?
No. I just know it's being increasingly a pain in the butt every year.
Yeah, because I would just suspect that if you compared most Latin American countries to the United States, I bet you there's a huge disparity in what percentage of each in the population that is self-employed. Like,
yeah,
you know, I think far more Latin Americans are self-employed.
Yes, and
which is very interesting that has occurred at this point.
Yeah, well, I think you know, I actually have an idea for a video script I'd like to write about the bureaucratization of our society, where it's becoming increasingly to the point where if you want to serve someone a sandwich, right? Simple sandwich, depending on where you want to do it, the hoops you have to jump through have become so stringent that you need compliance officers to inspect your place. You need a lawyer to review the laws. And for, like, in historical, let's say, New York City, where you'd have a lady in an apartment And what she would do sort of as a job is all the working class men in the whole apartment building, she would offer to make them lunches for like $1 or $2 or whatever. You know, like, oh yeah, just pay me this much and I'll give you a bagged lunch every day. It'll save them money, but it's also, she makes money doing it. It was like her profession. That's increasingly becoming like, you know, impossible. It's like, well, this is a home kitchen. This is not an approved commercial commissary.
Yeah, I do want to interject and really make anybody listening understand that, like, the reason why there are more self-employed people in Latin America is because of there's less bureaucratization or the kind that Embargo is talking about. Like, people can do down here in all sorts of places those kinds of jobs that Embargo is describing. Like, there are all types of mom and pop stuff that in the United States would simply not be allowed to exist because of legal tape. Yeah. And on top of that, I can't point to a set of legislation, but in my general experience, things are often made a lot easier for immigrants to come in and set up businesses than it is for
there's a sort of lower expectation on them, right? When the compliance officer comes by to hound you about your little, you know, this is out of place and you didn't fill out this right, they seem to go a little bit easier on immigrants when an immigrant does something wrong.
Well, yeah, I think that's probably true. Although that's probably, in my heart of hearts, I know that's true, but that's hard to like quantify to people. Now, what you can quantify is that there are all kinds of grants and loan programs and all kinds of things, infrastructures set up to help foreign-born immigrants over natural-born American citizens, and they all get ethnic and race specific. Yeah. So, you know, don't believe any of that nonsense that there's like all Americans are lazy or whatever. It's just no.
Health has gone up, crime has gone down. Now some of our things are starting to have an effect. Loyalty in our cabinet has decreased. It used to be loyal, but now it's more passable. So I'm probably going to get less political capital per turn to do things. They're going to support me less to actually do stuff. I have debt protection law. There is an urgent policy question that requires your immediate action. Debt collection agencies have been in the news because of their aggressive methods used to extract payment from the people who owe large sums of money. These debt collection agencies provide credit to people whom larger, more respectable companies will not lend money. A law is proposed to limit the way these agencies could operate. Now, what you notice is they've immediately combined debt collection agencies with loan sharks, right? They've combined a loan agency with a debt collection agency, which are often two separate entities. But let's see how they are offering us to limit it. Preying on the weakest and poorest in our society, often tricking them into borrowing money at exorbitant rates. This is extortion. Government should act to limit severely the activities. Nobody's forcing these people to borrow money they can't repay, and to restrict the rights of debt agencies to recover legitimate debts would be counterproductive. People need to learn to live within their means and not to expect the state to bail them out of trouble. They cannot learn to do so. So what we see here is we're not actually offered any, like, if you select one of these, it says limit the agency. How am I limiting it? Because what would I like to do? How would I like to limit this? I would like to limit their ability to act as loan sharks. I'm not as interested in their ability to collect debts. Like, I don't want loan sharks to still be able to make predatory loans, but then push debt collection agencies down into the black market, right? That's not what I want. I don't want to restrict their debt collection. What I want to do is restrict their ability to make predatory loans. But in this case, it just says limit or don't limit, and you don't even get an explanation of how you're going to limit these. Because how you limit these is going to be, like, significant.
Important. Yeah.
I'm gonna say, I'm just gonna limit them, assuming
I would.
that I'm arguing for borderline fraudulent, sort of predatory lending. You know, you have people on fixed incomes, the elderly, who are sort of fooled into signing papers where they might, on some level, be lied to their face about what they're obligated to repay. And I believe that happens, and I'd like to limit that.
I had first-hand experience working at a company that did this, and when I voiced my concerns to them, I got basically told to pack up my stuff and leave.
Yeah.
So this does happen.
Yeah.
This does happen. And these people, I mean, there are some people who argue, well, those victims are dumb, and this is what happens to dumb people. And it's just like, no, I'm not of that mindset at all. I do not think you should allow, if you know there are wolves running around, you know, at your fence trying to kill your livestock every waking moment, you know, like, I think you should be a little proactive about doing something about it.
Are you calling dumb people our livestock?
Well, I'm trying to come up with an immediate analogy. I mean, because some of these people, you know, aren't the brightest, you know.
Right.
But even if they aren't, I think smart people can get fooled into doing this stuff. So I want to lay that out there. But I don't think definitively, even if you are a 90 IQ white person or whatever, and you work, you know, a manual labor job or whatever, I don't think some 130 IQ person has the right to fool you into doing something that goes against your well-being.
Yeah.
Even
they
if
shouldn't be able
they
to
dupe you.
ruin your life to improve their life just because they're smarter than you and were able to trick you into signing some bullshit.
Right. I don't want that 130 IQ person in my society, to be completely honest. Like, I don't. This is why I'm not an IQ snob. That person represents more of a hindrance to society, more of a danger to society than any low IQ person does. I mean, pound for pound, they can cause a lot more damage. Obviously, aggregate IQ is still important, but, you know, in select cases, there are certain individuals who are not a net benefit. And, you know, what we often have, especially, you know, in the 2008 housing crisis, basically we had a whole bunch of loan origination companies going around fooling or coaxing a lot of dumb low-income people into refinancing their home or getting a subprime mortgage, and then they would bundle all this crap up and they would sell it on a secondary market to a really large entity that would eventually, you know, there would be consequences in the long run, but that large entity would have enough political clout that it would basically buy its own, it would politically buy its own financial bailout eventually. So, like, you know, these types of really smart people, like, they just pass it all down to everybody else who's not in their club. I'm kind of babbling.
So here we have an intelligence briefing. You can see these different groups, their memberships, and their threat assessment. Human Rights Society, the Church of Christ, Wildlife Trust, Heritage Society, Traditional Values Party. These are groups, and you have the gun here, which I think is supposed to mean more like these are more potentially violent. Black Power Group, Battenberg Group, the Land Army, Crusaders of the Lord. I mean, this to me almost like Communist Party, Human Rights Society, Heritage Society. This almost sounds like startup political parties. Who could shake things up. And here's their assessed threats, and these are more like paramilitary organizations, let's say. So, at the moment, nothing serious. All right. Let's keep taking a look. Oh, internet crime. Intelligence services affects this. If you go up, so right now we have a high-tech spy service, but we can go up to a spy satellite network. Internet crime goes down, liberals don't like it, crime goes down, patriots like it. Which seems odd to me. I mean, at least in the United States, so many patriots aren't patriots for the government. They're patriots for the idea of America and the American people. Like, they are, like, American patriots are probably spied on by the intelligence services more than most people.
Yeah, I mean, the word. I mean, this is what's so funny. Like today in 2021, I mean, like it's almost not hyperbolic to say that it is illegal and to some extent to be a patriot, or like it is like becoming increasingly illegal.
If you like the founding fathers and say the things the founding fathers said, you are on a watch list.
If you read anything from Thomas Jefferson's on the notes of the state of Virginia, read anything from there, you're probably gonna get on an FBI watch list.
Yeah. Let's take a look around. What can we do? Let's see if we can reduce our expenditures somewhat. Oof, okay, so military spending. Do I have enough to reduce military spending? The patriots are really not going to like it. Unemployment's going to go up. If we because there's going to be, well, less people in the military. State employee membership will go down. State employees will dislike it. Right now, it's listed as overwhelming force. We could still have, you know, like a highly trained military. Strong leader goes down, because to be a strong leader, you have to be a militaristic leader. Liberals will like it. Well, I'm going to do it. It's going to take 19 of my 25, so we're mostly going to be done with the turn. So military spending's way down. State pensions. Ooh. This would be a rough one. It would take 26 to lower it. Take 49 to cancel it. State schools. And then everything else gets down to less and less stuff. Let's take a look. What else? We could look at our income and try and increase our income. Sales tax, corporate tax. Let's take a look at sales tax. It does increase poverty. Decreases self-employed. Oh wait, no. The self-employed dislike it. Capitalists don't like it. Bad for equality. Why? Wait, no. Equality goes down. Right? Yeah. So it's saying. You know, it's interesting. They list here sales tax is the classic regressive tax, which means it does not take into account the ability to pay. Critics argue this affects the poor disproportionately and thus increases inequality. Really? I mean, I don't know about you, but most places I've lived in, food and clothes is exempt from state tax, right? Most places I've lived. So so as you get poorer and poorer, food and clothes make up a higher proportion of your budget, and thus you actually get less and less affected by sales tax. Meanwhile, if you're very, very rich and, you know, clothes and food doesn't mean that much, especially food from the grocery store. Like in some states,
you're not
going to a restaurant's
eat,
taxed, but going to the grocery store is not taxed.
Yeah.
And that seems good to me. And it doesn't seem regressive, because it does seem to affect more wealthy people more. Like if you... poor people who are going to the grocery store, buying food, going to Walmart, getting clothes, they're not actually paying that much tax for sales tax, and they're paying a lower proportion of their annual budget as sales tax. And someone who's buying like $1 million catamaran, well, you know, they're paying sales tax on nearly everything.
Yeah, I just don't generally think. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I do. You're probably gonna think I'm crazy, but I do kind of believe in some kind of wealth cap. I pretty much agree with everything you just said, but at the same time, I still don't feel like if anybody gets to a point where they own like this huge disproportionate amount of the wealth in the country, there's something's wrong. Generally speaking. So yeah, I don't know. I haven't really hammered out what I think about everything, but I mean, I don't disagree with anything you just said. One thing that transpires a lot down here is property taxes are exceedingly low, like really low. I mean, they practically, for all intents and purposes, for an American or a Canadian, they don't exist in Latin America unless the property you have is above a certain value, which is it's pretty reasonably high. And so, yeah, you can pass a home on to your children and so on and so forth, and be relatively certain that even in a economic downturn of pretty substantial size, your progeny is not going to lose the property that you worked for to pass down to them. I mean, there's things I like about that a lot. I'm sure somebody can make a good case against it, but I feel like I wish that were kind of a thing in the United States. But I'm not sure how people would end up like replacing the funding that comes from real estate taxes.
I mean, real estate tax is a wealth tax, but I'd be fine with. Well, I've talked to you about this before. What I might like to see is something like, listen, you don't get real estate taxed. You don't get property taxed on the first half acre, right? Or the first acre. Something that like you would put a house on and live on. So that way, if someone owns a piece of property, maybe a half acre, puts a house on it, they're never going to be put in the position where they're forced to leave because they can't afford the tax.
That's what I'm saying.
But if
like,
you have 200
like
acres, you get a tax. So you should probably do something with that 200 acres. You should probably do something useful. And I would be also fine
too,
with
because it doesn't allow people to just sit on it. Because
right.
I mean, I knew a lot of people who would buy property in the county I grew up or anywhere really, and they would just sit on the property and do absolutely nothing with it until the market got to a point where it would be they could make 5-10 times what they paid for it. So
now here we have a National Business Council. The establishment of a National Business Council gives a strong voice to business interests and ensures that the needs of businesses, both big and small, are taken into account. Yeah, that'll be a thing for a few months. What are the chances that the National Business Council becomes a mouthpiece only for big business within a few years? Any guesses? I think it's like a 90% chance. I don't know if the game actually does this, but that's what I would posit. It'll only be a matter of time before the National Business Council completely a mouthpiece for big business.
So what's the work safety law?
Work safety law. Series of measures to ensure employees are not at risk from injury in their day-to-day activities. Trade unionists often hail such laws as a valuable defense against unscrupulous employers who put lives at risk. Many business leaders are concerned at the high levels of bureaucracy and restrictive practices that can result from such laws, which they see as a burden on business. This sounds to me just like OSHA. And I will say, many of the big businesses are a lot bigger fans of the bureaucracy from OSHA than the small ones, right? Like if you wanted to start a landscaping business with like 4 or 5 employees, which does have risks to landscaping, especially if you're using power equipment. But you can't. It's hard for you to create a compliance department for OSHA
ties in,
when you're 4 guys.
This ties into like a lot of what I've been reading about coal mines, and like a lot of people don't understand that a lot of the coal mines that were established in the late 19th, early 20th. These were small startups, and so a lot of the problems that they had that people look back on retrospectively and say, oh, they were horrible, they did this, that. I mean, these were very small startups.
Yeah.
These weren't big. I mean, there were big businesses that did coal mining. I'm not saying that there weren't. But a lot of the things that you associate with worker safety violations, quote unquote, are really more the result of small startups not being able to like do anything. Now, I mean, there are other things too I would consider, like, and I don't know how you solve this with a small startup that can't really pay for it, but like in mining, like there were times when, depending on how workers were paid, like some would be paid hourly, but some would be paid based on the tonnage of coal that they got out, and they literally as a result of that wouldn't be paid for what was known as dead work, basically, you know, reinforcing the mine shaft, things like that, and that did put a sort of incentive on workers to cut corners and to be able to get more coal out. But I mean, there's different ways you can look at that. There's different ways you can look at that. It's not a really clear-cut thing, and for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Just like you're saying, you know, if you end up with something like OSHA eventually, then you're not going to have any startups, you know, or you're going to have fewer startups.
Well, or all your startups will be corporate sponsored, right? So like, it'll be startups won't be a guy in their garage. It will be a conscious decision by Unilever to empower some person who has expressed interest and has convinced them that they're worth investing in, right? It will be Unilever's decision whether there's a startup, not yours, because you're just a person and you don't get the ears of the board at Unilever, right? And for anyone who doesn't know, Unilever is a giant transnational corporation.
This is what a lot of people I don't think understand about the Industrial Revolution in America. All these things we take for granted today were only possible because, like, they only were implemented because of all of these quote-unquote human rights violations. You wouldn't have any of this stuff today that like, you know, you just wouldn't. Like, I don't know how to explain it in a nutshell, but, you know, you really wouldn't have a lot of the infrastructure that everybody takes for granted today.
Social Justice Foundation. This policy will establish a foundation that deals with the worries and problems of the poor and underrepresented in our country. It will take away some of the worries these peoples have and give them a better feeling of being included in society. It won't get them a better life directly, but at least some hope for a better future, and hope is very important to have. Reminds me of, so obviously social justice, they're not directly talking about what we would normally think of as social justice now in terms of like race and sex, right? But they are saying hope is very important to have. It reminds me, of course, this is like, this would have been during Obama's term, and he had his book, The Audacity of Hope, right? How important hope is. Social Justice Foundation. I don't think I'll be having a Social Justice Foundation, but designed to make people feel guilty about littering? People probably should be feeling guilty about littering. We've got a beautiful country here in the United States, and we should keep it that way. Well, unless we lose it, in which case I don't give a shit anymore. It will create more environmentalists, interestingly. So people will see this television ad and they'll think, you know what, the environment matters to me more than I thought, and they'll become environmentalists, and the environmentalists will like it. So let's apply it. What do the environmentalists think of me in general? Probably shouldn't create more environmentalists then, because they're not big fans of me. So let's take a look.
Does it say why?
Well, I mean, I can look around. CO2 emissions and pollution. These are the biggest ones. But let's take a look. I think financial data, achievements. I don't give a crap about achievements. Parties. Oh, man. Opinion polls. Oh, so here are focus groups, random people. Let's take a look here. So here's Roger. He's annoyed at the government. He's got no political party membership. He's not in any organizations. But he's part of everyone. He's part of trade unionists and retired, but also socialist, liberal, middle income, and farmers. He's not a big fan of me. This guy's even less of a fan of me. He's self-employed, middle income, conservative farmer. Really? He doesn't like me? Well, I guess it all started with what I received at the beginning. Motorists don't like me. Trade unionists really don't like me.
He has a lot of influence with ethnic minorities for some reason, which is kind of interesting for, you know, a white farmer-looking guy.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right, let's go to the next turn here. Inventing the internet, misinforming the electorate, pandering to the media. Stress epidemic. Doctors have warned that our businesses are working people too hard, which is leading to high levels of stress for people with full-time jobs. There are calls to limit on the hours that people work to get enforced by the central government, which is interesting, because, I mean, we're probably working less now than at any point in human history.
Yeah.
So I think blaming stress on that might not be correct. Credit rating went down again. We're now B instead of BB, or double B. Wildlife Trust are bad-mouthing the government on the internet. So, I created more environmentalists, but the membership of the Wildlife Trust has gone down. Credit assessment's fairly low.
Well, what do you think about the idea of not having a standard 40-hour work week, but having sectors of the economy that get an allotted limit on the amount of hours worked a week? Like, so if you do particularly dangerous type of job, well, I mean, just, I don't know. I mean, there's no way to, like, fishing's really dangerous if you do, like, you know, certain types of fishing, but, like, you can't really limit the hours of work you do a week on that.
Well, that's because a lot of fishing is seasonal work, so it's like you bust your ass constantly for the season, and then you do nothing off season, or you know you get some other job, right?
Yeah. So I'm just kind of wondering if, like, instead of there being like a universal 40-hour work week, if there should be like, if your job is designated stressful or dangerous, and it, you know, there's some way to quantify that and qualify it. If it should be reduced in the overall number of hours a week it can be worked, and then if, you know, maybe certain jobs aren't quite as demanding in a certain way, so therefore people can work more hours if they want. I don't know. It seems like something people should explore, think about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just hearing the idea. I mean, I'm skeptical. Let's see what else I can implement. State housing, rent controls, synthetic meat, compulsory work for the unemployed, alcohol awareness campaign. People just like all this stuff. I could tax the airlines. People would like that.
But what I want to see what the compulsory work for the unemployed is. Like, you know, if you want
an
an
unemployment benefits
check.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So everyone receiving unemployment benefits now has to do some work every week or risk a payment cut to their benefits. This includes public beautification, collecting litter, and other tasks that do not risk any jobs. The goal is to make use of this major workforce and get people back into the work routine, hopefully resulting in them getting jobs soon. No one should be expected to levy off the state without working.
You gonna implement it?
I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea. That being said, it's going to cost me money, and people don't like it. So, I'm dealing with a pretty significant tax problem right now, budget problem. My credit rating's going down. I'm inclined to institute a new tax if I can. You know, you could do a mansion tax, junk food tax. People don't like the junk food tax. Health food subsidies, tax incentive that makes healthy food such as fruit and vegetables cheaper than higher fat or higher sugar foods. I don't know what's a naturally occurring higher sugar food than fruit. I mean, unless they just mean candy and junk food.
You mean Snickers don't grow on trees?
Yeah, exactly. One of the things you'll see in this game, I don't know if, I think it's maybe in Bureaucracy 4, where they really explicitly push the idea that your citizenry, if you don't get them to go for plant-based diets, are going to suffer major health consequences. So they really push that in these games.
Oh, man. There's a game I think that's coming out that we should probably play whenever it comes out, and if you want to do it on your channel, I'd be fine with that. Where is it? I have it. Humanity. Hold on, let me. I think. No, that's not it. I don't know. I'll have to find it. But there's like this really like woke kind of like civilizational-esque humanity type game that I think you could get a lot of good commentary in on.
So let's decide on some taxes, though. I could do an airline tax. Now, the airline does point out that taxing airline fuel will encourage them to refuel elsewhere, right? Which could lead them to sort of creating these weird fueling patterns where they prefer to refuel in other countries and carry extra fuel. Carrying extra fuel does mean more pollution, right? Because carrying extra fuel is harder. So they might start to manipulate where they're carrying fuel. Luxury goods tax. This is, the sports cars, the private yachts, the expensive stuff. Now, I think it really matters on how well you create your luxury goods tax. But luxury goods tax could encourage high earners to live and work elsewhere. Although it's, depends on how big the tax is. There's a mansion tax. Super expensive homes.
What's involved with the airline tax again?
It's a tax on their fuel.
Yeah, I don't know how. I mean, I don't think there being like a big airline tax would really. I mean, at least for the U.S., I don't think it would do. Well, for most places, I don't think it would do anything to really curtail immigration. So,
immigration.
I'm just thinking about it because I'm thinking like if there had been like a big steamboat tax back in the day, that would have curtailed a lot of immigration because it would have made all the fares more expensive and a lot of people couldn't have afforded to come. But today, that's like. Increasing like like you would have had to increase a tax on coal, but like today, like I don't increasing a tax on airline fuel wouldn't have a similar effect.
Here's your punitive wealth tax. Inequality in our society is bad enough, and we must be seen to do something to ensure with those high levels of income bear their share of costs of maintaining a healthy society. Entirely reasonable to set a tax rate that takes away the majority of income above extremely high levels. Oh, this is not a wealth tax. It says wealth tax. It's an income tax. I don't know why they call it a wealth tax. It's an income tax. It says entirely reasonable to set a tax rate that takes away the majority of income at high levels. This is not a wealth tax. I don't know why it's called a wealth tax. Well, what do you think? Luxury good tax?
I don't know.
We need money, Krogan. We're broke. This country's going to shit.
Not only Snickers don't grow on trees, but money. Can't we just burr money print? Burr money print.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see anything here about print money cause inflation.
Internet currency tax.
Yeah, Bitcoin.
Wow. Okay. I'd do the junk food tax, I guess. I didn't look at the amounts.
People hate it, though.
Yeah, well... I mean, this is kind of like a big thing that people need to think about. Like,
well, we need to get people on our side first.
Oh, we have to?
Well, we want to get reelected. We can start to hit them with the harder shit later.
Now you're thinking like a real U.S. president.
Yeah. Our second term, that's when we can hit them with the stuff they don't like. Nero says, how would a developer in this sphere work around getting voice talent? That's one of the hardest areas to cover well if you are non-PC.
I'm not sure I follow.
It's hard to get voice actors for your game if you're creating right-wing stuff, I guess.
Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, people aren't going to want to be associated with it,
I'll voice act in your game, Nero.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm any good at it, but I'll do it.
Yeah.
I'm putting in luxury tax, luxury goods. Wow. You can really change the tax a lot. So wealthy don't like it, socialists like it, capitalists don't like it. Equality goes up, high earnings goes down, and middle income, they don't like it either. But not, I mean, their objection to it is small because depending on where I set this, it might not really affect them that much, right? This might just be a few purchases that they get to save up for rather than something very consistent like a wealthy person. Sales tax is generally somewhere between like 5 or like 4 and I don't know 8% or something in most of the United States. So I'm inclined to just say 25% tax, which is a fairly low tax on luxury goods. So when you get that $23,000 gold Rolex, okay, now it's a $27,000 gold Rolex. But I mean, whatever. What else can we do here? Abortion law. So, I can't afford to do anything with abortions right now. The religious like stricter abortions. The liberals hate stricter abortions. Oh, they hate total bans, but they're actually not that butthurt about limits. Conservatives like the bans, and they hate on-demand abortions. Okay, we'll get around to abortions later. What else can we do here? Oh gosh, creationism versus evolution. So, I can't afford to change anything. Krogan, should creationism be taught in school?
Oh boy. I don't. I mean, I'll tell you what. No. I think I'd have to say no.
Yeah. Evolution's real, people. That's one of our main problems today. Is not enough people accept evolution in humans. What else can we implement?
Yeah.
We got 15 points.
But I think it's real important for. I mean, there are a lot of Christians who have no problem working evolution into their religious framework, and so I think one of the unfortunate things about like the rise of internet atheism in the early 2000s onward is that there was this like really popular trope that Christianity was completely incompatible with evolution, and like just I know a lot of people don't conflate, they don't assert that, but I feel like from 2000 onward there was a steady increase in the amount of people who more or less believe that.
Okay, what else can I do?
Unfortunate.
Handgun laws? Oh god. Can't afford to change any of that. How about the death penalty? Oh god. Can't afford that.
We go back to like pre-Reagan? What was the firearm ban that was enacted under Reagan?
We're talking about the machine gun ban?
Yeah. Can we go back to like pre-Reagan on that?
Yeah, I think it was 1987 or something.
I thought it was earlier
Act
than
or
that.
something. Yeah. Back then, you could have machine guns actually delivered to your house in the mail. Okay, alcohol law.
You know what used to be illegal to deliver via the mail or advertised via the mail entirely?
Legal?
Illegal.
Oh.
Illegal. Like you could go to jail for it. Contraceptives, abortifacients, and any kind of sexually explicit material. This is all under the Comstock laws and act. And yes, Anthony Comstock, the person after whom this is named, is on whom the character Zachary Comstock in BioShock Infinite was based.
Okay, crime's gone down a little bit more. Employment's going up, though. Vigilante mobs are now at an end. The situation's over. Ban tobacco advertisements. There's an urgent policy request. There's a proposal for a law to outlaw the advertising of tobacco on television, although it would remain legal to advertise on billboards and other means. TV ban is seen as a potential way to reduce smoking by our citizens. So I can reject the ban, saying that there's no proven evidence that tobacco is anywhere near as harmful as some pressure groups claim. And it's weird, they write you these reject and approval things that don't necessarily fit what you might think as a person for why you would like to reject or approve, but this is what they wrote.
Well, I mean, in their defense, it's just like you can't please everybody.
They could just write what the bill's gonna do more succinctly instead of like, oh well, if you reject the ban, that's because you think it's a nanny state trying to tell people what to do. Right? That's the only reason you'd ever reject the ban. Like, if we consider our last one was a better example. It's telling us all sorts of reasons we might dislike, predatory lending and debt collection, but it doesn't actually tell us what the program does that we're approving. So I'm gonna go with approve. What do you think, Krogan?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, I'd ban the shit out of that.
No more advertising cigarettes on TV.
Are there advertisements for cigarettes in the United States at this point?
I think they might. I think the TV ban that we just did, I think that's happened. I don't know if you can have it on billboards.
That was a long time ago, though.
But I don't know, 20 years ago or 15 years ago, something like that.
I feel like it was longer than that.
Really? Look it up.
Yeah.
I got the game open. All right. Let's continue this. Jeez. Okay. Let's take a look at something important here. Do I have the death penalty? Okay, mass murderers only. Can't afford to raise it. Jury trial.
Congress bans airing cigarette ads April 1st, 1970.
Oh, okay. Long time ago.
Yeah, because I grew up with like.
Something got banned in like the 90s, didn't it? Was it billboards or something? Something got banned. Or maybe they said you can't have cartoon animals on it anymore, like Joe Camel. Because Joe Camel was a real cartoon when I grew up, and then he stopped being a cartoon.
That might have been a thing because I did see. I did smoke for a time, and when I did, camels had Joe Camel on it still. I don't think they can do that anymore.
I think they have an actual camel on it. So I'm gonna put strict border controls in. Liberals won't like it. Immigration will go down. Ethnic minorities won't like it. Tourism will go down, but patriots will like it. Boom.
Smokeless tobacco ads, on the other hand, remained on air until a ban took effect on the 28th of August, 1986.
Okay. So chew. Snuff, I guess. Not that anyone uses snuff in the United States, hardly. I think in Scandinavia they use some snuff.
The 2010 Family Smoking Prevention and Tobacco Control Act prohibits tobacco companies from sponsoring sports, music, and other cultural events. It also prevents the display of tobacco logos or products on t-shirts, hats, or other apparel.
So here we got a situation where, we're in the United States in this simulation, and liberal is starting to be confusing again. So here's a policy for prisoner tagging. High-tech alternative to incarceration that allows people to reintegrate with the community upon release from prison, which allows law enforcement authorities to keep a close eye on them. Liberals have concerns that such a system is a step towards a police state which monitors our every move. But in the United States, when it comes to worrying about CCTV cameras on every corner and a police and like a surveillance government, it's not the liberals, you know. Well, I mean, you know, we're getting into a problem with, you know, words. And again, this is why innate liberalism at the beginning of this game was annoying. But I'm okay with, you know, ankle bracelets and stuff on criminals. Like, if you're a non-violent criminal, maybe you were going to get 3 years in prison, but instead we'll give you 6 months and then a year with an ankle bracelet. There you go. There's your ankle bracelet.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with ankle bracelets.
All right,
I have a problem with vaccine passports.
Yeah. What else could we do here? We should probably just do a bunch of stuff. Oh, you can do a needle exchange program where you give out needles to drug addicts. I'm not into that.
I'm not into that either. At this point, I mean, I used to be into that, but at this point, I'd like to, I don't know, get really harsh on heroin dealers.
Okay, we're gonna do big community policing. We're gonna do. So what else are we gonna do here? Let's get through a couple of rounds of this quicker. Free bus passes. Anti-gravity research grants. Look at that. Anti-gravity car. Looks like it's got Wi-Fi. We really need more money.
I'm telling you, we should just put... Where's the R&D for how to grow Snickers on trees? Because once we figure out how to do that, like, we'll make all kinds of money.
Let's see here. What can we do here? Hybrid car initiative. Let's just go to the next round. I'll have more political capital to do stuff. Snoodle says, what purpose do ankle bracelets on non-violent offenders serve, though? I don't know. I mean, what we're suggesting, fundamentally, is reducing someone's time in prison, but instead adding an additional surveillance on them in lieu of that additional prison time. And I assume we're going to test that out on non-violent offenders before we start doing it to violent people, right? Uncompetitive economy situation is now at an end. Antisocial behavior is now at an end. People smuggling. Urgent policy request. A large number of people have been caught entering our country hidden inside cargo containers in an organized effort at people smuggling. The criminals who masterminded the scheme have been arrested, but there is a debate as to whether the people who are now on our shores should be sent back to their country of origin. So, I can allow them to stay. It says, quote, there is strong evidence that these people were desperate to flee persecution, poverty, or even death in their own country. Probably poverty. These are desperate people, as we can see from the lengths they went in order to get here. It would be inhumane to deport them now that they are here. I don't see why it would be inhumane. I mean, there's plenty of people living back in whatever country they're from.
Look. Just think about the little Moroccan boy with the little plastic things tied to his shirt and he's floating in the... Just think about that.
Screw having law and borders and shit. I got over 2,000 likes on that tweet. Deport them. Letting these people say would send out entirely the wrong signal to people who want to come here illegally. We have enough problem with illegal economic immigrants as it is. Unfortunate as it may be, the only sensible choice is to send them back. Sounds good.
Yep.
See you later. You're deported. It would exactly send the wrong signal. If you keep them, you're sending the signal that, hey, we don't want you to come in these illegal methods, but if you do it, there's no repercussion. In fact, we'll reward you. This is exactly the wrong message. Okay, what's popular with people? What can I give the people that they want? Import tariffs. Ooh.
Well, what I always come back to, it's like, okay, if it's everybody's right to come to the U.S., then why isn't it the right of the U.S. to come to everybody else's country and fix it?
Yeah.
Like, if there are just endless amounts of people, because like the proportions of people coming from some countries, particularly Central America, is like really high. Like, we're talking like over a ninth of Honduras' population. Like, over a ninth of the Hondurans in the world live in the U.S. Like, that's a lot. You know, in terms of, I mean, like, you know, there are more drastic figures than that, but you know, if your country is sending that many people, then perhaps there needs to be the beginning of a discussion or around the idea of whether or not these are failed states. Because it's not like it's just they're just going to the United States. They go to other countries too, you know.
Yeah.
Like, so.
Well, plenty of people are trying to get from like Guatemala into Mexico, and they are not welcome at the Mexican border.
No.
The Mexican border.
No.
The Mexicans treat their southern border very seriously.
You know, and it's, you know, the same thing with when the Venezuelan crisis happened. Like, you know, a lot of other South American countries are all like, oh yeah, open arms, and then like, because there was a lot of like semi-liberal policies surrounding like borders, and then, you know, over a very short period of time, everybody's just kind of like, yeah, this increases crime and they take our jobs and this isn't good. Like, literally, I have heard people talk about Venezuelans and Cubans in the same, you know, American sense, where like our liberals would make fun of the conservatives and saying, oh, they took our jobs. It's like, I've heard Latino versions of that when talking about other people from other Latino countries. Like, I've literally heard people talk about how they take our jobs.
Yeah.
And it was just like, you know, but then those same people will turn around and they will still not, you know, entertain the idea of us being able to say something like that. Because when we say it, it's racist.
So, handgun laws. In this game, in the United States, liberals don't like it, patriots like it, parents dislike it, and it's bad for liberalism. Once again, is liberalism... Are we not... So, like, you know, sometimes you look at this and you think, okay, they don't mean liberal like liberal versus conservative American words. What they mean is liberal like libertarian, let people do what they want with their own property, but then liberals are against the people being able to own firearms, right? That from a classical liberal perspective, they'd be fine with it. So liberal in the game doesn't mean like American liberal, but it also doesn't mean classical liberal. It's
not consistent. It's not internally consistent. Yeah, you know, it not only doesn't mean any of the things that you just outlined, but it's not internally consistent.
And if you were to poll specifically parents in the United States about handgun laws, you might find that they have a positive view about it. They have a positive view of handguns and guns in general. One of the, for example, when looking at just the whites, majority population, conservatives, so the right wing, who likes guns and dislike guns control, tends to have a lot more kids. Like, we make up more parents. So parents in the United States might, on aggregate, be somewhat pro-gun. So...
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'd like to see all that stuff broken down, because I'm willing to believe that, but at the same time, like, I do see a lot of these, like, weird liberal types, like, having a fair amount of kids. And I see a fair amount of... Again, I want to see some stats somewhere.
Well, I mean, you haven't seen stats on childbearing by political orientation? Look it up now. I bet you'll find it. Okay, let's see. What else can I do around here? Anything? I feel like there's... Well, I'm gonna... Once we get... I need to hurry up and get to some good stuff here. I want to start commenting on a lot of things here. How long have we been going? Have we been
We're
going
coming up on 2 hours.
Oh, shit. Oh, man, I haven't
Yeah, I was
hardly
just
gotten
gonna
through this
say
game
that,
at
like,
all.
I mean, generally speaking, I know that like there is this belief, and I have seen studies that show like conservatives have higher fertility rates than liberals or leftists, but I don't know. I'd like to see like really, really in-depth studies, I guess, because I just see a lot of like like the what are they, the try-hard guys? Like they all have kids apparently, and I see more and more of that type of thing. And I'll see a lot of like very active like right-wing dissidents who don't have kids, and so
Well, I mean,
I don't know. I guess I'm starting
that
to
doesn't
kind of
mean
doubt.
anything to me. I mean, you
Well,
said you've seen the statistics. I really don't care if Richard Spencer doesn't have kids. You know,
Richard
not that
Spencer
I
has
consider
kids.
him on my side exactly. But,
He has kids.
oh, does he?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Does he ever talk about him?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I
whatever.
think he has 2 kids. I think he has a son and a daughter.
Well, I'm gonna press through a bunch of things here. So I want to see. I want to just get to the. I want to get to some interesting stuff and sweatshop scandal. Oh. Blah blah blah. Let's just click through a few times here. See if anything good pops up. Because this, for anyone who doesn't know, I'm gonna be taking a break. Oh, credit rating updated. Nice, upgraded. Doesn't know. Next week. I'm not gonna be streaming. I'm gonna be taking a couple weeks off. I'm gonna be out of town. So I'll stream this Saturday, and then I'll be out for a while, like 2-3 weeks. So I want to get through here. Child labor law. Too many of our younger citizens are leaving school early to take up low-paying jobs. Some are even skipping school to work full-time when they should be learning. The law is currently very weak in regards to preventing companies from employing under 16s in full-time positions. This would make it a criminal offense to knowingly employ someone under 16 for more than 5 hours a week.
Do you care if I interject something here?
Make it quick.
Yeah. Data about fertility rates is only available for around 600 of the largest counties, thus many small rural counties are excluded, but the relationship shown here is clear. President Trump did better in counties with higher birth rates, and the difference is fairly large, with the most pro-Biden counties having total fertility rates almost 25% lower than the most pro-Trump counties. So that's just one thing off the cuff. Anyway, so I know you're trying to get through this, so I'll shut up now.
I don't know, man. Let's just leave it unchanged. I'm just gonna click through a bunch of time here. Like, I could be making policy changes, but instead I'm not. Alright. Ethnic plot. Our latest security reports indicate a growing threat from the extremist organization known as the Black Power Group. It looks like a number of people are angry at the way the government policy is affecting ethnic minorities, and see eliminating the current government by force is the only way to change things. You might want to be careful about future angering ethnic minorities if you don't want to suffer an attack on your person. So let's take a look at the security briefing. So here's the Black Power Group. They're decently high on the threat assessment, and they are armed. Bad people. So, yeah, I don't know. They might kill me. Let's see. Let's go to the election. We want to skip through this and go to the election.
Can you get assassinated?
Green plot, yes. Undercover operatives have infiltrated extreme eco-terror group known as the Warriors of Gaia. This organization is committed to striking at the very heart of government, possibly even direct assassination attempt. Okay. Let's, oh, alcohol abuse situation's finally at an end. We solved that. Let's go to... Where is it? Police force. I want the spy force. Community policing, intelligence services. Okay. Spy satellite network. Try and stop killing things. Appoint UN ambassador. Oh. UN ambassador retires this year. We need to name a successor. So I can appoint Carol Gonzalez, a patriot who will fight tooth and claw for our interests. Or I can appoint Joe Carter, popular figure on the international stage for a reputation for solving difficult problems through compromise and understanding. A true internationalist. It is interesting to me that Gonzalez is the patriot and Carter is the internationalist. I feel like that's on purpose. I'll get Carol Gonzalez.
You think?
She's against import. She's against foreign aid and for
She's a
import
Spaniard.
tariffs. Yeah, probably. She might be. I feel like when you start using those types of names in an American setting, it's sort of, we have fewer Spaniards, right? We have fewer like direct Iberians than sort of like mestizos.
Yeah.
Achievement
Oh, yeah.
unlocked. Crime-free utopia. Wow.
Well, you know what's interesting? All the Spanish Americans that I've known growing up have been like, whenever anybody has confused them with a Latin American, like they've been like very, very quick to be like, oh no.
Yeah.
No, my family came from Spain. You know, like it's just like.
So here again, we have a proposal. Law has been proposed to regulate the fat content and nutritional value of food sold to children, including food sold in fast food restaurants, and of course, food served in schools. This is likely to incur a cost for food retailers. Now, we've got a few things that are coming into play here. One, it's blaming fat content rather than, let's say, sugar content, which I think is probably a bigger issue.
Yep.
And also, we're not just going to regulate what goes into schools, which is something the government runs. We're going to do it at restaurants. And to me, it's like, there's a couple, I understand wanting to improve children's food. I think children are being exposed to bad food way too much. But it's putting the blame not maybe where it's most important to put the blame. And it's not just addressing schools, which is like the most reasonable to say, like, listen, the government runs these schools. The government's going to dictate that better food will be served here. And it's going to go to restaurants too with questionable nutritional advice, right? So do I want to regulate children's food to prevent childhood obesity and the significant the health of our children is significantly declining, and that matters to me, and that I would maybe approve some laws that improve that, given the way they've worded it. I don't know if I'd do that here, but the Snickers bars are not that high in fat. I mean, it is there. It has peanuts in there, but it's not like that high. It's largely sugar.
Yeah, I was just gonna say real quick, I don't like that sort of reactionary movement. I don't know what to call it, but they kind of make fun of the people who talk about think of the children. Like, there's I don't think that's been popular real recently, but you know, for a couple of years, I've just seen memes that make fun of, you know, think of the children, with like from the Simpsons episode, I think it was. I just hate that. It's just like, there's nothing wrong with thinking about the kids, you know? And like, I mean, like, what kind of degenerate, amoral or immoral person, you know, makes fun of people for thinking about the future generation? Like, yeah. Don't care about your own people. Be an atomized individual.
Well, I mean, on some level, the children arguments are sometimes just have no real basis in anything, and people are just throwing it out as like a bargaining chip. Like, well, you're against children because you don't support the specific policy I like, you know? And they have no reasonable connection between their policy and the future generations.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely true. When people like throw out, you know, they push back against that. I get that. I guess what I'm upset about is, you know, there are a lot of consumers who get like really upset about their, you know, boobies and butts and things like that getting potentially censored, or the violence in their video games getting censored, or whatever, because of children. And I get where you're coming from with that. Honestly, things are too hypersexualized. So I mean, I'm not really opposed to having some kind of like I don't know. The sexuality today in society has got to be dialed back. If somebody can figure out a good way to do that without censoring games or coming up with some kind of a censorship board, have at it. I'm all ears. But yeah, one way or another, society's way too hypersexual. It's got to be dialed back.
I'm going to give a speech. It's going to bolster state employees. It might hurt the self-employed a little in terms of their support for me. Farmers will go up. Commuter will go up. And then I'll also maybe make some inroads with the youth while hurting the retired.
I gotta go to the bathroom.
Okay, good luck. Don't hurt yourself. So here's the speech. My speech is happening. Ah, got a good speech. State employees up 10%. Self-employed down 5. Okay, it's 10 and 5. Right. Excellent. What's it want now? Whistleblower. Oh, okay. Secret Service contractor has leaked several documents that shed light on the dark side of the war on terror. Should we prosecute her and do everything we can to bring her to justice, or should we reform the Secret Service and stop making use of malpractice she's accusing us of? Well, what is the malpractice? I think this is very contextual. As a general rule, people who blow whistles on our government are probably good. I'll just do that. Capitalist plot? Oh my god, people hate me. Extreme nationalism. With a rise in patriotic feelings across the country, extremists have begun to publicly blame foreigners and ethnic minorities for these problems, demanding jobs for people that have been living in our country for generations first. Lacking hope and education, many people have begun to believe that these extremists caused increased violence and racial tensions nationwide. So, nationalism is the real problem we're dealing with now in this game. Oh. I just banned modified foods. So, oh my gosh, more election speeches? Socialists, capitalists.
I wonder if there are interesting achievements within here that would provide some interesting stats on Steam.
Oh, there we go. Okay, we're getting close to the election. We'll be able to wrap up the day of the game here, and there's a couple things I'll want to talk about. Message from Minister. Oh, he's unpleased with my performance. Well, that's too bad. Let's just keep going. Okay. Electioneering. Oh, man. Oh, I can pledge to make... what's this say? I can pledge to cut border controls, which I'm not going to do. I can pledge to cut poverty. So the blue ones are actual, outcomes. And the white ones are policy decisions. So I can make pledges. I'm not gonna. I'm just... Let's get on with this. Let's get to the election. Either vote me out or vote me in. Election results. Start the count. I think I'm winning. Jeez. I won by a lot.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
That's a crushing victory. You have managed not only to win the election, but take a majority of the entire electorate with you, leaving no doubt this country's legitimate leader. Democratically elected for another term. All right.
President embargo, re-elected.
Now, what you've seen here in this game, what they've presented, is democracy as they want to present it. You have these policies. The policies have these outcomes, like like narcotics laws can affect crime totally, and crime affects everybody, and everyone's bothered by it. Or let's see here. Oh, come on, give me something better. Really? Okay, you can have, programs that affect the environment, and the environment affects a voting bloc, environmentalists. And that's what they'd like, that's how they want to present democracy. Is this how democracy actually works? Is this game a good representation of what it's like to be in power in a democracy? And I'd say, clearly no. This is nothing like a democracy. It's an interesting game. It's sometimes presenting some interesting ideas. It's sometimes presenting some harmful ideas, but this is nothing like how a democracy works. Okay. Maybe you've heard of this study, Testing Theories of American Politics, Elites, Interest Groups, and Average Citizens. In that, we have this chart. So you can see average citizens' preference. So at the bottom, you see the bars for percent favoring a proposed policy change. Sometimes it's as low as 0. Almost no one wants this. Sometimes it's 100. Almost everybody wants it. On the left side, you can see the predicted probability of adoption, which is a flat line at 30%. It doesn't matter what the American citizen, the average person, thinks of a policy in terms of it getting affected. So what is happening? Let's grab this and move it up. Economic elites preferences. If 0% of economic elites support it, if they are all against it, its chance of passing is nearly 0. If the economic elites mostly like it, if like 80-90% like it, then it's like a 60% chance of it passing, right?
This is really important to consider when you look back at major laws being passed from the late 1800s and the early 1900s. I mean, this is why we got the 1882 ban on Chinese immigration. It's why we got the 1924 Johnson-Reed Act, because a lot of our elites supported that stuff way more than they do now. That's just something to think about.
On this third chart, we can see interest group alignments, and interest groups, it's a little bit more sketchy, but it's like once the majority of the interest groups affecting things start to move one way, then it really starts to affect things. But for the most part, Alley Cat, 1969, how do they define the elites? What I would do is look at this paper. I don't want to go that deep. I'm already over time. I normally stop streaming at 2 hours, and we're at 2 hours and 15 minutes here. But look at this paper. And he wrote another paper, Martin Gillens. He wrote another paper like a year or two later about the same topic, only with more data. So I would look into that if I were you. But you have to understand that in Democracy 4, which is still in early access on Steam, in Democracy 4, when you're going through policy decisions in the game here, right, you will be presented with issues where a donor wants you to do something. or a special interest group is reaching out to you. And really, how these games should work, if you want to represent real democracy, is the vast majority of your time shouldn't be based off of policy decisions that affect outcomes, and then outcomes that affect individuals within the citizenry and how they feel about it, like environmentalists and the poor. Really, what you should be doing is managing media relations, managing special interest groups, and managing elites. Because they're the ones who decide whether you ever get elected again. If you wanted to make a democracy game that truly reflected how it worked, your entire game would be about pleasing interest groups and elites, right? So, this game, not very realistic. If you want to hear more about democracy, I would recommend a video by Alternative Hypothesis. He's got this on BitChute. He talks about the study that I mentioned. It's titled, They Don't Care About You. And he talks about what I've just mentioned, but he'll also talk about studies like this one. Elections, information, and policy responsiveness in autocratic regimes, where autocratic regimes, where dictatorships is more responsive to political desires of the average person than Western democracies, which is a huge deal. Imagine that. You think of like the third world dictator who has the sham election, right? You think that they would be less responsive to the average person than our democracy? That might not be true. Alley Cat says, in this game, political capital is a huge crutch. You are almost a dictator except for this factor. Except people might kill you if you piss them off too much. In this, yeah, I would say if they toned back
like a real dictatorship.
If they toned back like the groups that'll just assassinate you, but really, really push hard the fact that, like, in this game, it's not the fact that I did whatever the heck I wanted, you know, and then none of these people quit on me, and I'm still getting lots of social capital from them. That is unrealistic. Social capital should be much bigger in the game, and actual policy should be much smaller. Imagine if, instead of having this huge policy board and then opening up your sort of social capital window, imagine if you had a huge social capital, elite, and special interest board, and then a little window where you could sort of open up policies and mess with a few policies. That would be a more accurate reflection of Western democracies than the game as presented. That's what I'm presenting. If you want to know more about that, Alt-Hype did an excellent video. They Don't Care About You. You can check it out on BitChute. But otherwise, we're over time. It's an interesting game. It's a fun game, but it is not anything like reality. Well, we're over time. You got anything to say before we go, Krogan?
No, sir. Thank you for having me on again. It was fun.
Okay. We'll stream this Saturday, and then I'm out for a couple weeks. I'm out of town. I'm doing other things, but then I'll be back next month. So I hope everyone has a good day. See y'all on Saturday. Peace.